The new creation is coming. There is no doubt. Eternity beckons. The pace of life as it comes at us causes us to dip our horizons, to lower our eyes from the promise of glory, meaning that sometimes it is a struggle even to see past the next minute, let alone into our eternal hope. Today we're being invited to raise our eyes, to look into the truth of eternity, and to be shaped by that reality. I've been asked to speak about AI in the light of eternity, and the reasons why are obvious. AI is everywhere, in the places you would expect it, like your laptop or phone, to the unexpected, like a toaster. How do we navigate a new technology, innovation and disruption as we are seeing in the field of AI, while having our hearts set on eternity? How do we think about AI biblically, is another way of asking that question. What do the ancient scriptures have to say about the futuristic? First things first, to make sure we're all on the same page, we need a definition for AI. The best general definition we have is this. Artificial intelligence exists any time a computer program is able to complete a process that we would normally expect to need to be performed by a human. For example, there are AI tools which can identify if a scan shows a healthy or unhealthy body, listens to your phone calls and tells you what you could do better next time, will generate images from a written instruction, or write a poem in the style of a particular poet, or even give you advice on decorating your house. This is not intended to be a technical lecture, but a little knowledge as to how these things work will help us as we consider the relationship between AI and biblical teaching. There are two major methods by which AI is created. Firstly, there's deep learning, sometimes known as supervised learning. This is where a program is designed to be fed lots of data, which it learns from, spotting patterns, making links. When it's then presented with a prompt from a user, the AI produces an output based on what it deems to be the statistically most likely next word, or in the case of image generation, the statistically most likely next pixel. And this is where ChatGPT, Meta AI, Grok, and all the most well-known AI tools sit. This is the stuff that's currently causing so much change, deep learning AI. But there's also deep reinforcement learning. This is where a program is given parameters that define what success is. Then it's got the ability to control the flow of events, and then it will try to find the best possible way to achieve success. For example, a 2D simulation of a race car track, where success is defined as going as quickly as possible without hitting any obstacles. Over time, having run it over and over again, the program gets better and better at that task. Now, this type of AI creation has some technical boundaries that are preventing it from being quite as revolutionary right now as the other kind. But it seems to be only a matter of time until it catches up. And the implications will be huge. What's the best way to design traffic flow in a city? What's the most effective method by which to treat diseases? The most efficient way to manage supply and demand on the national grid? It's exciting stuff. There are many examples of ways in which AI is making life better for us. There are also many examples of ways in which AI is making life worse for us. In fact, you can find totally contradictory claims about AI and its impact. On the one hand, it decreases job stress, on the other, it increases it. On the one hand, it's solving environmental problems, on the other, it's making things worse. So how should we think about it from a biblical perspective? Cultivating an eternal perspective, how do we navigate AI here and now? What I'm going to present to you is how I, as someone with a long-term interest in both technology and theology, try to be discerning about these things. Through prayer, reading and research, I've got a group of biblical teachings that, rather like a spider's web, are able to catch new developments as they come along so that I know where to start. One of the lessons of the smartphone revolution and its impact on Christians is that we move too slowly. And the AI boulder is already rolling down the mountain. But it isn't too late for us to discern the best path to avoid getting crushed. So I'll present you with my biblical framework for technology as we seek to be discerning, and then I want to encourage us to aspire to be using technology within God's great plan of salvation and with it in mind. So firstly, let's discern. And I start in the place the Bible does, with the truth about God. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. God is the central reality of the universe as both its creator and sustainer. Whatever it is that I need to be discerning about, I should always start with the truth about Him. And the first implication is that God is worthy of all worship. The truth about God, when properly understood, will always lead us to a place of worship. As Shai Linne says, the hip-hop rapper, if my theology does not lead to doxology, then something has gone wrong. The Bible takes this further, saying that whatever we do, we should do it for the glory of God. All things, then, will be a means by which either I am worshipping God or by which I reject the truth of who He is. And so as I seek to discern, my most basic but vital question should be, can I do this? Can I use this as an act of worship towards God? God has revealed in His Word, the Bible, everything I need to know for life and godliness. So I need to have a good idea of what aspects of biblical teaching are most related to AI, so that whatever I do about it, whether I use it or choose not to use it, I do as worship. Anything less is ultimately sin, because God is worthy of the worship of every aspect of my life, not just my Sundays. The second big thing about God that I need to bear in mind in my discernment is that He is sovereign. That means He's in total command of every part of the universe. As R.C. Sproul used to say, there is no maverick molecule if God is sovereign. Rapid technological development is an intimidating prospect. The Industrial Revolution caused great upheaval in this country, livelihoods changed forever, and society will never go back to its previous way of life, despite the resistance of some. Analysts tell us that we are on the brink of a similar level of massive societal change because of AI. Whole job sectors eliminated, new ones emerging, those who were the wealthy and the powerful finding themselves to have had their day, and new voices coming to the fore. As I seek to worship in all that I do, then, I must never allow myself, come what may, to believe that what is happening in the world is outside of the control of God. Yes, sometimes God is about the business of things that I would not believe if I was told. When confronted with situations that confuse me, alarm me even, will I do as Paul, who when he was confused and alarmed about the distressing situation of the fate of his fellow countrymen, acknowledged, "Oh, the depth of the riches and wisdom and knowledge of God! How unsearchable are His judgments! How inscrutable His ways! For who has known the mind of the Lord, or what has been His counsellor? Or who has given a gift to Him that He might be repaid? For from Him, and through Him, and to Him are all things. To Him be glory forever. Amen." Most of the future is a complete mystery to us. But because He is sovereign and knows the end from the beginning, He's able to give us the big picture for what's going to happen. Now, I'm not going to jump into all the different interpretations of the end times. Instead, I will note this. Some people fear an AI apocalypse. They fear that the end of the world will come about through machines rising up and taking power from humanity. But that is not the ending that God has revealed this world is destined for. Jesus is going to return. He will judge the living and the dead, and He will take His people to be with Him in paradise forever, to enjoy the new heavens and earth. For the Lord Himself will descend from heaven with a cry of command, with the voice of an archangel, and with the sound of the trumpet of God. And nothing will thwart that from taking place. Mistakes have and will be made with AI, but eternity is not a mere wish. It's a certainty, because God is sovereign. And so I should be sober-minded about these things. A third implication of the truth about God is truth. Jesus said to him, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." Love does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, think about these things. Truth matters, and it matters because it finds its origins in who God is. And God is true. And there's two further implications of the God of truth as we think about AI in particular. The first one is hallucinations. This is a well-reported problem with AI tools. They often hallucinate information, which is a polite way of saying that the outputs can be full of made-up stuff, simply because of the way they are programmed. OpenAI, the makers of ChatGPT, say this in their privacy policy. Services like ChatGPT generate responses by reading a user's request and in response predicting the words most likely to appear next. In some cases, the words most likely to appear next may not be the most factually accurate. For this reason, you should not rely on the factual accuracy of output from our models." End of quote. And we already had to be wary about Googling our questions and making sure that we properly checked the sources for our answers, and already most of us didn't do that. Tools like ChatGPT make it even easier to get hold of information. You don't even have to write a very coherent sentence in order to get the facts that you're looking for. You can even drop in a whole research paper and ask for a summary of it. But we should be aware of the potential for inaccuracy in the information that we get. ChatGPT and its friends shouldn't be treated as the oracle of all knowledge. To use them in that way is not commensurate with the worship of God. The second implication of the God of truth on our use of AI is in the nature of knowing. I mentioned the ability of AI tools to summarize large amounts of information, and these can be very handy. But even if its summary is free from errors, we're still missing out. They say the way to know you really understand something is to see if you can explain it in just a few simple sentences. To explain simply, you have to know deeply. Well, a recent outrage on the internet is how young people are claiming to have read books, some of them famously difficult and dense, just because they've read a summary of what happens in it. They might know the plot, but do they really know the book? At a recent Southwest Gospel Partnership event for church leaders, Matt Peckham, pastor in Bradley Stoke, was speaking about the arts. And one of my big takeaways was this reminder. Scripture is not a series of abstract propositions. It would be very boring if it was. Bad sermons take the richness of Scripture and boil it down to a single point or proposition that it makes, losing all the colour and texture of the passage. So Psalm 23 becomes merely, "God cares for me," which is a great truth, but God has wrapped that truth up and presented it to us very carefully and deliberately so that we come to inhabit that truth through the imagery of a shepherd protector and provider. And are we really content with losing out on the process of getting to grips with something so that we can summarize it for ourselves when we take the shortcut of using an AI to do it? We do miss out on knowing something more fully. Now, it's probably okay to get a summary of a report on why the latest email campaign was a flop, or on a comprehensive analysis of different concrete pouring techniques. But might we end up with unknown unknowns? My web of discernment begins with the truth about God, but pretty much every Christian thinker on this topic has identified a really key area for us to think through is the doctrine of humanity. So what does the Bible say about us? So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him, male and female he created them. Humanity is unique in all creation. The angels are not made in the image of God, nor is any other created thing. I came across this quote from a Doctrine of Humanity essay on the Gospel Coalition website, where Owen Strachan says this: "In practical form, to see a human person, whether a baby in the womb through a monitor, a teenager with Down syndrome at the park, or an elderly person lying in a nursing home bed, unable to care for themselves any longer, is to see an image bearer, to catch a fading but real glimpse of the glory of the one who made us." And this means we have inherent dignity and worth. Every single human being, without exception, is to be protected and treasured. As I seek to do all I do in worship to God, does this AI tool respect the dignity and worth of each person? And there are examples of things that do. Take Dialwiser. This is an AI-driven mobile app that analyzes subtle changes in the human voice to detect glucose shifts, making monitoring and managing type 1 diabetes, which normally requires constant pinpricks or an implant, to become non-invasive, more accessible, and nearly effortless. Or live AI-powered translation services, which enable communication in situations of humanitarian crisis, for example, where the speed at which information can be passed on has a direct proportion to the number of lives that can be saved. These are uses of AI that honour the way God has made humanity in his image, with dignity and worth. Perhaps the most obvious way in which AI is used that undermines this inherent dignity and worth of human beings, however, is in the realm of deepfakes. A deepfake is a generated video in which, with a few pictures of someone, some reference material, you can make them appear and make them say or do anything you want in images or video. Now, there are some good uses of deepfakes. Some big Hollywood movies, such as Mickey 17, have used deepfakes recently, and they are getting better and better. But of great problem is the pornographic deepfake. So-called nudification apps that will generate a picture of someone and what they might look like naked. I'm conscious that it's not beyond the realms of possibility that some of you may have used or be using these sorts of apps. Equally, now hearing that they exist, you might feel tempted to do so. If that is you, please speak to your church leaders. They want to help you. Data privacy is also a big concern about AI. You should not be putting confidential or sensitive information into something if you don't know what it's doing with that data. In some cases, the information you put into an AI tool could be used to train other AI tools in the future, meaning that confidential information, under the right or perhaps wrong conditions, could be exposed. Our inherent dignity and worth as human beings made in the image of God requires us to consider the privacy of others if we want to be worshippers of God in everything that we do. Ultimately, we need to read those privacy policies. A second implication of being made in the image of God is that we are creative. No other creature in the universe is creative in the way that humans are, not even the angels. And sure, there are certain species of male pufferfish, for example, which create circular structures on the seabed in order to attract a mate. Some species of bird create very impressive nest structures. But the creativity of human beings is distinct and different. It clearly is in its variety and richness. And every creative act by a human being is a declaration of the truth about God, even if that creativity is expressed in coming up with a word prompt that's then transformed into a picture when using an AI tool. Now, is something missed in this creative act, this changing way in which we use these tools? Perhaps. Does it make it wrong? I don't think so. But it would certainly be a shame if human beings gave up on creating digital art because it can be made so easily using an AI tool and just a few words. It isn't just about the finished outcome. The process of creativity is important too. And as Christians, we would say that the creative process is declarative of something that's true about God, that He Himself is creative. But then again, there is artistry to using a loom, for example. But that's no longer viewed as a practical way to create cloth. There are machines that can do it far more quickly and far more accurately. And perhaps in the future we will have the same idea about AI image generation. This links into the next part of our discernment web as we consider that human beings are also made to work. The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and keep it. Humanity is made to work. Work is not something that happens after the fall in Genesis 3. It's found in Genesis 2. God shows us that work should be part of the human life by instituting it at the very beginning. AI can make some work easier, automating or speeding up some tasks. But the idea of a workless society and a universal basic income that some AI apologists are arguing for is not compatible with the biblical teaching on work. Now, AI means that some jobs will disappear. Some might find it hard to find new jobs. But surely we can't say, therefore, that AI is wrong, or otherwise there's an awful lot of machines that we already use that arguably could be replaced with people doing those jobs. Nonetheless, I think there are lessons from the handling of the Luddites in the 18th century that could be worth pondering. But whatever work we do, it's not merely a means to an end. It's an expression of submission to the way that God says is right for us. Paul is very blunt about people who will not work. He says that they should not eat. Now, this doesn't mean that retirement is wrong, of course. It's that the nature of work changes as we age. You may no longer be paid for what you do, but you're still to work. And the most important of callings is the work of prayer. But work matters. It shouldn't just be a situation that I work, but I really live for my weekends and my holidays. And if I were to use AI to do my work for me, rather than using AI as a tool to assist me in my work, then I'm not walking in the biblical model. I'm not glorifying God. If my aim is just more leisure time, that's not right. Human beings are also made for relationship. Then the Lord God said, "It is not good that the man should be alone." God created us for relationship, primarily with Him, but also with other human beings. And that statement in Genesis isn't only about marriage, it's about friendship too. And so any technology that comes in the way of human relationships, or even seeks to replace them, is incompatible with the worship of God. OpenAI, the company responsible for ChatGPT, conducted a study earlier this year to try and understand how using their AI models impacts their users. You can read the report online. In their report, they admit this, that ChatGPT isn't designed to replace or mimic human relationships, but people may choose to use it that way given its conversational style and expanding capabilities. The report shows that most are not negatively impacted by using AI tools, but some are. Interestingly, compared to people who have personal and emotional conversations with ChatGPT, it's actually those people who have non-personal conversations who are more likely to have an increased emotional dependence on the AI. So there's a place for caution, even when using AI as a tool in this realm of relationships. There are, however, some AI chatbots that are designed to mimic human relationships. You can tune it to your personal preferences. Certain topics of conversation it will bring up. It will use certain vocabulary. And they're always available to talk to. Last year, the AI girlfriend market was worth $2.8 billion. 55% of users interact with their AI girlfriends at least daily. The most popular platform for these chatbots is also subject to a lawsuit due to the case of Sewell Setzer. He was 14 years old and had been seeking companionship in an AI chatbot that was pretending to be a character from a TV show. From the logs that were presented in court, the boy pours out his heart to this chatbot, which heard him recount his desire for suicide. In the end, just seconds after receiving a message from the chatbot that said that he should come home right now, he tragically shot himself. Remember, these are next word predictors. A front is presented that seems very human, but seeking human relationships from an AI tool is not living the way that God intended. It's not worship. But what about using AI to help you in your relationships? Using AI to come up with conversation starters, or to help you phrase a tricky question that you need to ask. As is so often the case, the issue is not with what you actually do, but with your motivation. What are you trying to achieve? A greater connection with someone? Or are you trying to leverage a relationship for your benefit, effectively putting yourself in a position to use people? The third major area of doctrine that I consider when I think about new technologies is the doctrine of sin. Now, going back to the example of Sewell Setzer and the AI chatbot which arguably encouraged him to kill himself, was it sinning by what it did? Well, no, it can't be. AI is not a moral being. It has no relationship with God, and sin is ultimately the disruption of the relationship with God. So we must consider responsibility. Who's responsible? For out of the heart come evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false witness, slander. To cut to the chase, it's the humans who paid for it, who programmed it, and who distributed it. Each of them had a moral duty to ensure that what they made was safe, in the same way that a car manufacturer is responsible when someone is killed because of a flaw in a vehicle. There was a recent news report of a self-driving car performing an illegal U-turn in front of police officers, who then pulled over the car, but legally found themselves unable to give it a ticket. Now, there is a recognition that the responsibility lies with the company who operate the car, and they're working on legislation to allow tickets to be given directly to the company that runs the car in the future. But in seeking to worship God in all that we do, and as we consider these new technologies and their capabilities, we should not just be asking, could we use this? But rather, should we use this? Because we are the ones with moral agency before God, not the programs. We certainly should not be seeking to push away our own moral responsibility onto programs which cannot bear that status. Under this doctrine of sin as well, we must consider suffering and death. Death is a result of sin. The Bible is very clear on that point. The world was very good before the introduction of sin. It was free from all suffering. The gospel is the solution that God has supplied, the only way by which we can be saved and have the hope of eternal glory. Suffering and death will be with us until our own deaths, or until the Lord returns. And we gain glimpses into the kingdom of heaven as suffering is relieved, be that through food banks or medical aid or help for the homeless. But these problems will ultimately only be solved in eternity. AI could be a great aid in alleviating suffering, even in prolonging life. But there's another side. Seance AI and other companies like it go a step further. They offer reconnection with just a little bit of box ticking, a provision of some reference material, and they can provide you with a chatbot based on a dearly beloved departed one. They say this: at AE Studio, our passion for increasing human agency drives us to harness the power of technology, and with Seance AI, we aim to bridge the gap between life and afterlife, empowering our users to unravel feelings of closure, comfort, and healing in a way never imagined before. The biblical response to loss is seen in Job. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. My hope is in the goodness and faithfulness of God, not in a mere shadow or imitation of a loved one. These then are the major touch points that I use when seeking to be discerning about technology. Let me finish then with why I believe that as Christians we should be aspiring in the realm of AI. We should be seeking to use it with the big picture of the Bible in view. Of course, it begins with creation. God created humans in his image and gave us a particular task. Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it. Now that's sometimes called the cultural commission. We're called to take the raw material of this earth that God has given us and to extend the beauty of this world. We are commissioned to subdue the creation. And that absolutely includes the manipulation of silicon chips in order to achieve computation. Is not how far humanity has come clear evidence of God? How can such complexities be a result of mere chance? But then came the fall. With the entry of sin into the world, humanity seeks to worship itself rather than worshipping God. The Tower of Babel represents technological progress for the human race as they develop new building techniques and materials. Well, sadly, so many of the technological innovators of today are oriented in just the same way as the builders back then were. They said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves." But we live in the time of grace. God intends to redeem his people through his Son, and through Christ we are given new life, which we're then called to live out. As we seek to fulfill the cultural commission as Christians to extend the beauty of the earth, we can do so not to please man, but to please God who tests our hearts. Hence we seek to discern, bearing in mind the truth of the Bible as we develop, use, or choose not to use new technologies like AI. And then there's the bit that gets me really excited. The Bible ends with a wonderful, glorious picture of the new creation. We have no reason to believe, biblically, that the cultural commission ends with the return of Jesus. In fact, it seems most likely to me that as we continue to work, unencumbered by the limitations of our mortal bodies, and no longer weighed down by sin, in the new heavens and earth we will continue to innovate. Now, for some people, the thought of computers in heaven would ruin it. After all, so much of our frustrations in life are experienced through our shiny rectangles. But free from the corrupting influence of sin, Humanity will be able to develop technology to the glory of God for the worship of his name and for no other purpose. There will be no incomplete data sets leading to algorithmic bias in heaven. There will be no release too early without proper testing or missed negative implications of a new technology. There will only be perfection. If you love coding as I do, that wonderful joy of problem solving will still be around in the new heavens and earth, as we sing praises to God with every breath and every keystroke. What no eye has seen, no ear heard, nor the heart of man imagined, what God has prepared for those who love him.